Hello, BookTube. Sorry about the bombardment of videos, especially after such a nice, peaceful, quiet respite from me. But since I'm feeling able, I thought I'd do a little catch-up video on matters that have evolved or tangled while I was in an unprecedented interruption in service on this channel. The first one of those being, a decided note of gratitude to probably hundreds of you by this point who emailed me, especially pictures of dogs. I got flooded with pictures of dogs from people saying, I'm not anywhere near you, so I'm hoping this helps. And it did. In every case, it did. So I wanted to thank you for that. I also wanted to thank you for, all of the non-dog picture emails, all the expressions of concern for how I was doing. This has just been a really bad, icky, sludgy, slow-moving viral infection. And nothing tremendously, urgent to worry about, but still, it shut me down. And having that kind of support, having that kind of people, people I'm never going to meet, reaching out and saying, how are you doing? I'm thinking about you today. That's wonderful. So that's thing number one. Thing number two, quite a few of those people, quite a few of you who emailed, in addition to sending me dog pics, were also sending me book-related stuff to try and distract me, to try and get your mind off being sick. Also very much appreciated that. And one item that kept coming up, that's come up recently and has kept coming up, is people pointing out to me that Publishers Weekly, absolute industry standard of book assessment and book reviewing, I know library acquisition departments, book review section editors who absolutely swear by Publishers Weekly. They wait for the Publishers Weekly verdict on a book before they make a decision on their own of which way to jump. And Publishers Weekly just recently did their best books of 2019 list. And people were emailing me saying, hey, what do you think of this? And there were a couple of others. There have been a couple of other fairly high-profile such lists of awards or, and soon, of course, as you know, we'll be absolutely inundated with them. All the major newspapers, all the major magazines, everybody will do a best books of 2019 list of some kind or other. And I wanted to sort of take all of those pointers, all those reminder emails, and sort of lump them together with one response, which is that I'm not going to respond to any year's best lists on this channel or anywhere else, because every year for a very long time now, I make my own year's best books list for the year that was. It starts on December 1st and runs until I run out of categories. Probably 14 or 15 different categories: fiction, debut fiction, science fiction, mystery, romance, science and nature, kids and YA, history, biography, works in translation, best fiction, worst fiction, best nonfiction, worst nonfiction. It's a whole event, if that's not too self-aggrandizing. And if I wasn't being too self-aggrandizing then, I'll try to be a little more self-aggrandizing, which is that my list is not put together by a harried board of editors who are all looking over their shoulder at political correctness purity police, or who are all looking over the other shoulder at what all the other journals and newspapers are doing. It's also not put together haphazardly by, you've got one editor over here who read 10 books in 2019, all in one niche subject. You've got another editor over here who read 35 books in another niche subject, or broadly, but they were all from the first part of the year, and then that editor had a hernia operation or something like that. And then you have other editors weighing in on those lists who've read 2, maybe 3 books in the year. And I have all the best of intentions. My nightstand is absolutely crowded. I can still weigh in, though. At the end of every year, I come out with the definitive year's best and worst books of that year list. Definitive, not for book blogging. I did it forever when I had a book blog, not for the internet, but anywhere. My list is definitive, and it will be coming out in December. So I am, of course, not. I couldn't care less what Publishers Weekly's list is. The rest of the time, the rest of the year, I'm absolutely agog with curiosity to know what everybody thinks about evaluating things like that. But at the end of the year, I make my own list. It's almost ready. I'm leaving spots open in every category for last-minute surprises. I got a last-minute surprise just today. Who knows? It might be on the list. Who knows? I will find out, and by December 1st, I will have codified the whole thing, and it will start to unroll on Open Letters Review the electronic, the online literary journal where I am one of the editors, one of the features that I have on Open Letters Review is Stevereads, the banner and the identity of my old book blog. I don't usually blog anymore. I don't actually know in 2019 what it is to blog about books anymore. It never was really what I was doing. I was always, in one sense or another, offering a review, a formal review of a book. And the times when I wasn't all that satisfying for me, so I just decided to do reviews. The one time when I branch away from that now, typically in a year, is the Stevereads year's best and worst books of the year list. And 2019 is right coming up. I'm going to read like a dervish in the month of November, and then I'm going to roll out my list, and when the list is over, that'll be that. So I wanted to mention that for people who've been mentioning that list to me and who are bound to mention other lists. You have the definitive list coming out. Not only am I not a committee that can let anything slip through the cracks and that is extremely prone to fads and bandwagon jumping. I am completely immune to fads and bandwagon jumping. Not only am I not a committee, but even when you take into account committees, I have read more than all of the people on those committees put together. The New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, they are all going to bring together their entire book section with probably branches out to other specialty editors in order to coalesce their list of books. And in every one of those cases, I have read more than all of those people put together of the books in 2019. As you know, if you watch this channel, I read precious little else. That means something. It means I haven't missed anything, or almost nothing. And you are applying one critical judgment to them all, instead of wondering, well, is this person a pushover? Did this person read almost nothing this year, and that's why this book is getting overwhelming praise from them? Instead, as you've seen in 2019 on this channel, I read everything, and I pay attention to it all, and I subject it all to the same critical buzzsaw. So, I wanted to mention that. I'll mention it a couple of times more in November as we approach closer and closer to December, because December tends to change the landscape in ways that always catch people by surprise. But before we get to December, we're going to be dealing with November. And there are a whole bunch of things going on in November, and I wanted to talk a little bit about those, and I'll let this video go. I won't make 5 30-minute videos today. There are a bunch of events going on in November, and I wanted to give you a little update on some of them. One event is a mandatory read-along on this channel of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species, it's only the second mandatory read-along on this channel, and the book is about 400 pages long, so we'll be doing 100 pages a week in the month of November. The first 100 pages of On the Origin of Species will be due next weekend. And there's also read-alongs that we've been doing on this channel just regularly. Two multi-part read-alongs that I've been doing in conjunction with a bunch of other booktubers. And they're both fiction. They're novel sequences. There's Frank Herbert's Dune novels and Stephen R. Donaldson's The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant the Unbeliever, the first trilogy and the second trilogy. And we started in July, and we were going to do one of those books every month until the end of the year. And I thought when November rolled around, another big booktube event is Nonfiction November, now in its 5th year, hosted by Olive at a Book Olive. And I'm very excited about Nonfiction November, as always. I love it. I want everybody to read a lot more nonfiction. And at first, my enthusiasm got the better of me, and I said I want to do a nothing but Nonfiction November, where the only fiction I will read in the month of November will be stuff that I'm being paid to read, stuff that I have an active in-hand commission for. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought, nonfiction's not going to disappear if you ease off that a little. If I increase my nonfiction readership in November from 78% of my reading, which is where it stands right now, to 99%, that will be just fine. So it doesn't seem right. It seems like the setup and the long work that we've done on these read-alongs is the same thing as a financial commission. In either case, they should be abandoned. So we're going to continue with our read-alongs. So in November, we're going to do a read-along of Heretics of Dune by Frank Herbert. This is the lovely new Ace, slightly taller mass market paperbacks that I just love them. I've been reading them for this read-along. And we will also be reading the next book in the Thomas Covenant series. I jumped the gun on The Wounded Land and finished it early. But in November, we'll be reading The One Tree. And this is, once again, the same length as all the other books, so we'll be reading about 7 or 8 chapters a week. And Heretics of Dune, we'll be reading. What is this? The Heretics and Chapter House are a little longer. Yeah, Heretics of Dune is almost 700 pages long. So we'll probably want to read a lot more of that. So I don't know, 225, something like that, 225 pages. You know, roughly speaking, the chapters in the Dune books aren't numbered. So roughly speaking, you want to go into around the 200-page mark. I won't be doing any spoilers, I don't think, and I won't be cutting off anything, you know, at an ice cold, crystal clear demarcation. But I wanted to make sure to let you know that Nonfiction November notwithstanding, we will continue with our fiction read-alongs. So we will do The One Tree and Heretics of Dune in November, along with a nonfiction read-along, which is Origin of Species. The read-alongs will be disrupted. I was planning on disrupting them for November, and that's not fair, especially since they will be disrupted anyway in December, unavoidably. I'll figure it out later on in November, but something drastic will have to happen in December because I'm not going to be doing the read-alongs for the whole of the month in December. And that, you know, that tangentially brings me to Nonfiction November. I would love to know what your plans are for Nonfiction November. I saw on Twitter, Olive made a playlist of a bunch of people's TBRs and sort of shouted people out, and I wanted to add to that list my own. I also did a TBR for the month, and I'm planning on reading a lot more nonfiction than that. My TBR was mostly for you, but I'm curious to know from the rest of you what your ideas are. Are you planning on doing a nothing but nonfiction November? And if not, what is your percentage going to be? As it's a great event. It's a great way to remind you of the variety and the invitingness of nonfiction. I'll be doing a whole bunch of nonfiction November videos in November. And then the last November thing that I wanted to just talk about briefly is NaNoWriMo. National Novel Writing Month is in November, as if all of this weren't enough, where hundreds of thousands of people get together all over the world, sometimes in person, but mostly on electronic boards, and write the beginning of a novel, 50,000 words, 1,667 words a day. I just recently, when I was sick, I was wallowing in the Barsoom tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs, and I was reminded that A Princess of Mars is shorter than that. So it's, you know, we say the beginning of a novel because typically speaking, if you're going to charge $30 for a hardcover, you want it to be a little longer than 50,000 words. But it is a very good beginning. And I've mentioned on this channel that I had a plan. I had an idea. I was going to do a historical novel about Sir Philip Sidney. And the idea started out as a birth to death historical novel, just the agony and ecstasy type thing, where we follow Philip Sidney through all the points of his life. And then I thought about that, and I thought that's kind of boring and would almost certainly lead to long periods of dull prose, no matter what I do. So then I thought, well, okay, pick a discrete period. And I thought, young Philip Sidney, his first trip to Italy, with extensive documentation from that period, and there are a lot of people, the characters that he meets in Italy that I'd like to write about. And I changed the title of my work, and I changed the rough outline that I'm working on, and I was thinking about it some more, and I realized that one of the main people that I wanted to write about in a Philip Sidney novel that I wouldn't be able to write about would be his sister, who was back in England at the time. And then I thought, okay, well, all the dumb cliche methods came to mind. Did she write letters? Will I make part of it epistolary? Does she appear to him in a dream or many dreams? Is she actually in Italy with him and the historical record has been falsified? And so on and so forth. And the more I thought about that, the more I thought there's no good way to do that. That hasn't been done poorly 100 times before. So maybe don't have that be the setting. Maybe move the time frame of the novel somewhere else, a year in England, when his sister can be part of the storyline. And then I started casting around for years, and I had a whole bunch of candidates, and everyone fell apart for one reason or another, and I started to get more and more disenchanted with the whole process of being frustrated by this book that's supposed to be fun. And that is where my NaNoWriMo journey has me today. With NaNoWriMo is what? This is the 29th. The 1st of November is on Friday. And my NaNoWriMo project is in complete shambles. I don't have a working outline. I don't have a working plot. I don't even have a working concept anymore. Philip Sidney, those two names, is not a working concept for a novel. So, I just, again, I'd like to know where you stand on the matter, no matter where you stand. It will be better than where I stand. A rank pantser would be in a better position right now than I would be 2 days out from the beginning of NaNoWriMo. So this hasn't been the smoothest NaNoWriMo incubation. This hasn't been the smoothest Preptober for me. I just wanted to bring that up because we've been out of touch for a few days. I will persevere. I will find a way. And I'd like to know what your stories are as well. So I'm going to wrap this up. This was just a quick, my version of quick update video for you, let you know all the sorts of things that have been on my mind and that are going on in November and in December. So I'll wrap this up, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.